Joining me now to talk more about this practice of granting asylum is Robert Anello, a New York attorney with a focus on white-collar criminal defense. He's also handled numerous extradition cases. Welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
Robert, the U.S. grants asylum all the time, and we've just heard some of the numbers. Couldn't it be considered hypocritical in its expectations of other countries and the way it's handling the Snowden case?
Well, I think there's a lot of variation when you talk about, you've given it some large numbers for asylum cases. There are some almost 500,000 asylum applications annually worldwide. The U.S. does grant asylum or the applications are made in about a quarter of those cases to the U.S. But the asylum applications are made for lots of different things. Persecutions based on race, religion, nationality. A large percentage of asylum seekers are people trying to escape war and genocide. Another large percentage are women fleeing genital mutilation. And another group, it's actually a recent group, is people fleeing domestic violence in countries that don't prosecute domestic violence or protect people from it. So, the typical asylum seeker is not someone like Edward Snowden. There certainly are certain people that are fleeing for political views, and that's what Mr. Snowden is trying to put himself in the category of.
We heard the U.S. State Department come out and say that they're not going to compare Snowden's case to any other asylum case. But is that fair, and is his case completely unique? Because you have the Bradley Manning case going on right now, and although there's not an asylum issue, one could say that he fears for the same type of treatment as Bradley Manning.
Well, he does. He has said that. Bradley Manning is on trial, I don't think, and he's on a military trial. Mr. Manning is in the armed forces. Mr. Snowden isn't. Mr. Snowden has been charged by a civilian court, and it would be tried in a civilian court. He's been charged with 3 counts: espionage and theft. And I understand Mr. Snowden has said that he fears persecution. That's the basis for which he's seeking asylum. I'm not sure you can compare him to Bradley Manning, but I understand he wants to be compared with him. He also wants to be compared with Julian Assange. Their cases are different, and I'm not sure that from an asylum point of view, comparing himself to Bradley Manning makes any sense, because Mr. Manning isn't seeking asylum.
Robert, I want to get your take on the future here. Snowden's been stuck in the same place for a month now, and now there are new reports that he could receive some paperwork to stay and move freely around Russia. Is that realistic? And if that happens, what are the chances that he'll ever be brought back to the U.S.?
Yeah. I think Mr. Snowden's not going to find a very friendly reception anywhere. I mean, look his recent history. He was in Hong Kong. It was fairly clear Hong Kong, he was a hot potato. They didn't want him in Hong Kong. That's why as soon as he was charged and an extradition request was made, he was essentially put on a plane. No one wanted to have him around because he wasn't worth it. In Russia, he hasn't been met with open arms. I mean, he hasn't, quite frankly, been let into beyond the entry point in the airport. So it's fairly clear Russia doesn't really want him. And what they're offering him in his application is for temporary asylum, not political asylum. Temporary asylum is good for 1 year, and essentially the way I understand it's being set up is so that he can be shipped off to another country. And my instincts are that he's not going to have a great reception wherever he goes. He may go to a South American country, and ultimately his fortunes will change. I mean, Mr. Snowden has one asset right now, which is he's a thorn in the side of the U.S. government, and a country that wants to stick their finger in the eye of U.S. government may find him valuable. Once he's used up for that purpose, he doesn't necessarily have a staying power in any one country. There have been many people who have attempted, U.S. citizens who have attempted to flee U.S. jurisdiction and haven't had a good result. Many years back, there was a international financier named Robert Vesco, who was actually an American, and he fled the U.S. He had money. He didn't have information like Mr. Snowden has, but he had some money, and he fled and went to Costa Rica because he was friendly with the ruling powers there. When those powers passed away, he was kicked out of Costa Rica, and he found himself on his way to Cuba, where when his money ran out, the reports are he died penniless in a Cuban jail. Mr. Snowden's value may run out sooner or later, and my sense is that wherever he is, we'll find that the detriment of having him on their soil is not worth the benefits.
All right, Robert Anello, we appreciate your insight. Thank you so much for your perspective.
You're welcome. Have a good day.